praise be to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to each and every one of you in the name of the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. It is always a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to bring a message contained in His Word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. In today's message, I want to deal with something that we're seeing all over the internet, YouTube and other streaming platforms, and that is this video of Druski, the satirical piece that Druski did, mocking and ridiculing mega church pastors. And you know, some people find it hilarious, some people are extremely offended, others seeing it as an accurate depiction of what goes on today, and some others say not so much, that he's, you know, again, mocking God. The reality is that, you know, the Bible warns you about about greedy preachers before Druski did. This warning is all over the Bible. You know, and I've seen it firsthand. I can remember being in church as a child and the preacher getting up and saying, I need somebody to step out on faith. This is back a long time ago. Like I said, I was a kid. Who has $1,000? I need you to, who can donate $1,000 right now? I need somebody to step out on faith. And my mother stood up, and I couldn't believe it, because I knew she didn't have the money. I saw the tears in her eyes when a raccoon had just torn up our roof because she didn't have any money, right? But some kind of way she was going to donate this money. I can remember going to my cousin's church, and he would line everybody up, hundreds and fifties here, 20s here, 10s and 5s here, and don't bring me any change. And I can remember going up there, putting put a nickel or a quarter, it was a piece of change, into the offering plate, and the looks he gave, you know, and I can remember my family, other family members that went to that church, bragging about how they had bought their pastor a new car, and how they had bought him a new house, and how, you know, and I saw him, how he was walking around in mink, you know, coats. And I remember when my uncle died, my great uncle died, and he told his son, man, your father sure, he sure was a tither. You're gonna have to replace him. It's all about money. But you know, in Druski's depiction of what's happening, you know, satire is mocking. People are laughing, but satire is not really, because that's what it is. It's satire. It's not for the purpose of just mocking. It's actually for the purpose of change. But the reality is that people need to look at themselves as well. Why would you allow this? You allow this because they're giving you a message that you want to hear. You want to hear. See, the game is, I'm rich, you want to be just like me. You want to sow a seed. The reality is, you giving all this money, and these people are lying to you. So they get rich, you end up with nothing. That's the game they're playing. But the Bible already warned you this. Isaiah 56 chapter. Isaiah 56 and verse 9. And another thing, you don't want somebody to tell you what thus saith the Lord for real, because you have to have a moral standard. See, they don't really require a moral standard. They'll tell you do right without telling you what right is. They'll tell you that the law is no more, but then tell you must tithe, which is if you have any understanding, you realize that's a part of the law. That's not done away with, even though the rest of the law is done away with. They're lying to you. But again, the Bible warns you. But people are not reading their Bibles. Isaiah 56 chapter in verse 10. Notice what it says here. He says, his watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Now these watchmen are those who, as Ezekiel said, you read in his writings where the Lord said, I made thee a watchman, warn the people of me. You know, the man of the Most High is supposed to tell you what thus saith the Lord, so you would repent, so that you would turn, so that you would stay on the right path. But these guys, they're not warning you. They're supposed to be on watch, but they're blind. And they're dumb dogs. A dog is supposed to be an alarm. A watchdog is supposed to tell you, you know, if you have a guard dog, he's supposed to tell you that there's danger. How does he do that? He barks. But a mute dog or a dumb dog doesn't say anything. He said they cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving the slumber. So judgment is coming because of your sin, and they're supposed to be on watch. They're not warning you. If think about it, our communities in particular, we would not have the terrible communities that we have, full of crime, if we had righteous preachers. You know why? Because they set the moral compass. If they're following the Most High, obviously in the Word, they set the moral compass. They don't have a standard of morality. That's why we have all these churches. Our neighborhoods that had the most churches look the worst. Why? Because that church, it needs to be closed. Why? Because they're not teaching people the truth. You know, the first sign they're not teaching the truth is they got you in there on the wrong day. Nowhere in the Bible does it say you're supposed to go to church every Sunday. That's not written anywhere in the Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, it's not what Jesus did. That's not what Paul did. That's not what the apostles did. That's not what first century Christians did. They kept the Sabbath or the Sabbath. So that should let you know something right there, that something is wrong. You can't come up with your own way of worshiping Him. That's why you're in trouble now. God is a spirit, and they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. He didn't die on Good Friday and rise Easter Sunday, so now you got Easter. So now the solemnity of the Sabbath has transferred from Saturday to Sunday. All this foolishness. That's just one example. So he says his watchmen are blind. He says in verse 11, notice he says, yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough. So he warned you about these greedy dogs. He says, they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his gain from his quarter. They want money. So they don't want you to be saved. They don't want your salvation. They want money. Now they will come looking a particular way, because like con men don't come, hey man, run them pockets. No, they talk slick, smooth. And part of you, like I said, you have to take accountability if you fell for the shenanigans, because you are not reading if you following what they saying in these churches. You couldn't possibly be reading. Right? And if you think that the Lord came to make you rich, you are sadly mistaken. That's you wanted to believe that. So they're not only greedy, they're greedy, but you are greedy too. And another thing, because people want to look at them, yes, their mouths need to be stopped, absolutely. But you can't say that you don't have any accountability or any blame if you fall for this. You have blame because it is up to you to determine what is proper, what is righteous, what is not. What does the book say? That is on you. The Bible says, save yourself from this untoward generation. That is on you. And don't think that, oh, I'm going to leave that church and I don't deal with the church. I ain't dealing with that. Like you free now. And when I say free from blame. No, you still need to figure out what you need, what the Lord requires of you, regardless of some false ministers. He told you there will be false ministers. It's up to you to find out what the Bible is actually saying. You think I'm not gonna deal with them, you know, I'm gonna watch the game. Man, listen, where are you gonna spend eternity is what you need to figure out. I didn't go to that church. They lied. Yeah, they lies, yeah, but what did you do exactly? I just watched the game. So you didn't keep the Sabbath like I commanded in the 10 Commandments? No. You didn't keep the feast days like I commanded? No. You were committing adultery, you lied? Yes. You dealing in, a lot of times people leave and start dealing in some other false worship. Listen. You're going to have to give an account for what you do. You need to find out what you should do. You need to find out you need to get salvation. Just because somebody's lying don't mean you off the hook. That's what people don't realize. That's the danger in this. So people can laugh, but you better find out what the truth is. People can laugh and giggle like it's sweet. You better find out what the Lord is requiring of you. This is Micah the 3rd chapter, and he talks about them. He says in verse in verse 8, but truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment and of might, to declare unto Jacob his transgression, and to Israel his sin. He said, hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and princes of the house of Israel, that abhor or hate judgment, and pervert all equity. They build up Zion with blood, and Jerusalem with iniquity. The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. So now it's all about money, right? The leadership. See, you have various forms of leadership. You got the leaders like our political leaders amongst our people. They want money. The spiritual leaders amongst our people, they want money. Nobody cares about the people. But the people have a responsibility to make sure that whatever somebody's telling them is right. And you're not doing that. So it's a failure on both ways, on both ends. He said, the heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. That's why when you talk to every Negro, how you doing? Blessed and highly favored. Look around. Do we look blessed and highly favored? Or do we look cursed as a people? Look around in our neighborhood. Look at Gary. Look at Baltimore. Look at Chicago. Look at Trent. Look at Memphis. Look wherever we're at. And see how we're doing. As a people. Destroyed. Why? Because we turned our back on the Lord, and the spiritual leaders should be turning us back unto the Lord, not away from Him further. They shouldn't be turning us to some false worship and then making us broke in the process, but that's what they're doing. But we are, when I say we, I'm talking about the people are allowing this. Because you really don't want to hear the truth. You want to be entertained. You want to hear a lie. You want somebody to coax you and say, yeah, I know you having all these kids and no father, and you commit adultery, or you worshiping falsely, but it's gonna be all right. God loves you. No, I'm not here to tell you that. You're gonna go to hell if you don't get it together. That's what the Bible is telling you. You won't inherit the kingdom. You'll be cast away. There'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth if you don't get it together. If you don't stop sinning. These Christian pastors will tell you you can sin. See, that's on you. Your flesh wants to hear that. That's on you if you falling for those lies. Jeremiah the 6th chapter. See, this is nothing new. Jeremiah the 6th chapter. This was a problem back here. This is Jeremiah. He says in verse 13, he said, for from the least of them even unto the greatest of them, everyone is given to covetousness. And from the prophet even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. See, there's no morality. Look at our neighborhoods. Look at us as a people. Look at what we're doing. How do you allow 20 million abortions and these? That's just one example of many things. How do you allow 20? Because to me, that is the greatest tragedy. We alone have killed over 20 million babies through abortion, and the ministers are silent. Our ministers are silent while we kill generation after generation of children. We've killed what equates to half of our population through abortion. Because we only read 40-something million, well, approximately 40 million. We've killed over 20 million in abortion. We have killed what would equate to 20 or 50% of our current population, and these false prophets are silent. Look at our neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods I mentioned, those cities that I mentioned, you can go clear from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. You can go up north and you can go down south. Wherever we're at, we're killing each other in the streets. Silence. But you know what we do have? You go to our neighborhoods, what do you see? Church after church after church after church. Abandoned building, abandoned building, abandoned building, church, 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 chicken shack, Foreign-owned gas station and corner store, church, abandoned building, abandoned building, abandoned building, abandoned building, hair salon, church, chicken shack, church. That's not, that lets you know something is wrong. How do you have all these churches? Like I said, do it. If you black, you know what I'm talking about. Go. If you Israel, you know what I'm talking about. Go through our neighborhoods, and the worse the neighborhood is, the more churches you see. We so crazy. Church is chicken. Church. Let's go to the New Testament, because this isn't new. Let's go to 2 Peter. 2 Peter 2. And notice what he warned. See, if you read the Bible, you would be on lookout for these false prophets. He says in verse 1, 2 and 1, 2 Peter 2 and 1, he said, but there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you. So we read about how they were false back then. Then he says there's some false teachers today. In his day, he said, who privately shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. So now the real wealth and the price that we should be worried about is not a price of some false minister's Bentley or his designer shoes or the dress he bought his wife. You know the real price we should be worried about? The price that was paid with the blood of Christ. That's what we should be concerned with, and that should prick our conscience to do right. But they doing everything else in these churches. You go to these churches, it look like a fashion show. You go to these churches, it look like a secular concert, and no book is being read. And then the ones that claim to be right, they liars too. They not teaching for real. They not teaching the book. This is verse 2. Well, I'm gonna pick it up at verse 1 from the top. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privately shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. See, they're gonna pay. But notice what it says here, verse 2. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Notice this. And through covetousness. See, there. We read in Jeremiah 13 how you had covetousness everywhere. And he said, and through covetousness shall they with vain words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. It's like, I saw a lady. I gave you personal examples that I know of. I saw a lady, it was on the news. Lady got sick. She had gone to church decade after decade after decade. And what happened was her family called the news because they received a letter. Now this woman was about to die. It's not like they came and saw her. They said, hey, we want to make sure she okay. We just contacted you because we haven't seen the sister. No, they contacted her saying you are no longer a member. The woman was on her deathbed. They kicked her out on her deathbed. You understand what I'm saying? And so her family showed the letter, put the church on blast. But like I saw a man recently, he got a video out, I don't know him. He said, hey, his grandmother died. She had been going to that church for 50 years, and then when it's time for a funeral, the pastor said, I had it right the first time, but the pastor said, I don't think we can have her funeral here. He said, if you don't have this funeral here, I'm going to burn this down. Now, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that's the mindset. It's like you've taken all that you could from the person. Let's go to Matthew the 23rd chapter. But the Bible already warned you about that, right? Matthew the 23rd chapter. What did Christ say here? Matthew 23. And we're going to pick it up here, verse 14. He said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. He said, for ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Because the man said, you took my grandfather's money for 50 years. My grandfather wouldn't even go in because he hated you. Couldn't stand you. He knew you was lying, but he gave her the money. He sat in the car so she can go in the church. And then he died, then she died. Oh, we can't have her funeral here. He said, man, I'll burn it down in the daytime. Y'all, some of y'all probably seen this video. But that's nothing new. They were back then taking advantage of. See, you should the church should actually care for widows. It shouldn't throw them away. It shouldn't throw them. Oh, I done got all the money I can get from it. I done robbed it. That's not what you should do. But then it says something else in verse 15. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you can pass sea and land to make one proselyte. So you going all over the world, like sea and land. You going all where you need to go to make one convert. Then he said, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. That's what all these prophets, false prophets, are doing with these private jets. They traveling over Africa, they're in India, they're traveling all across the country. Some of them will be bold enough to tell you, well, I can't fly on a commercial plane. There's too many demons on the plane. I need a private jet. Or you got some that would say, well, Creflo Dollar asked for $50 million. Was $50 million? It's for a new jet. Well, the old jet is old. And they'll say, well, it's not my fault y'all don't have faith. Y'all mad at me. I just got faith enough to ask for it. And this same one said, hey, you know what? That prosperity gospel I was teaching was wrong. All those books and all that stuff I said, throw it away. Well, hold on, bro, because you said you wanted to kill the people if they didn't tithe. You wish you could kill them if they didn't tithe. I heard that with my own ears. So now what about all that money? And you still lying to people? But again, people want to hear that. Wasn't you in the Welcome to Atlanta video years ago? Man, hey, but he ain't the only one. There's so many false teachers out here. And that parody that he did, that Druski did, was on point. But the Bible was telling you that already. The Bible was telling you that already. And it just so happens in your desire to be entertained that you saw that. But people know these ministers ain't right. Hypocrites. Lying to people. Sending people to hell. And they teaching you supposed to be rich. Right? Give me your money if you want you want a blessing. Like I saw some man the other day. Matter of fact, it was last night. I was watching a video and he said, I need your life savings right now. And I saw another one. He said, I need somebody, if you give $10,000 in the next 90 seconds, you'll be a millionaire. Man, they running game. This is 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter. In verse 5. Well, I'm going to pick it up at verse 3. He said, if any man teach otherwise. Let me go back and read it just in context so we understand what he's talking about. He says, let as many masters as are under the yoke count their own masters. Let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed. So he's talking about showing honor to those who do. He's not literally talking about somebody who's whipping you with a whip. That's not what he means when he said master, by the way. But it said, and they that have believing masters, let them not despise them. So if you have somebody you working for that's a believer, don't despise them because they are your brethren. He said, but rather do them service because they are faithful and beloved, partakers of the benefit. These things teach and exhort. So you shouldn't mistreat them or think, I ain't got to do nothing for you, even though you basically are contracted or you a servant of that person. Okay? He said, if any man teach otherwise and consent not to wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, into the doctrine which is according to godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing, but doting about questions and strifes of words, whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, evil surmisings, perverse disputings. Notice this, men of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness, from such withdraw thyself. So that's what they're telling you in these churches, that gain is godliness, right? Oh, the Lord's not dealing with you because you don't have any money. What Bible verse is that? That's not in the Bible. Then he says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. A light just went out on my camera, but we're gonna still deal with this book. Jeremiah the 23rd chapter. Jeremiah the 23rd chapter. Because here, notice what he says here. Because this is what they should be teaching you. He says, I have not, verse 21, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to hear my words, then they should have turned them from their evil way and from the evil of their doings. That's what the man is supposed to do. You're not supposed to take advantage of you. Ezekiel, the 34th chapter. You're not supposed to take advantage of you, but that's what they're doing. Ezekiel, the 34th chapter. And verse 2. He says, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? See, if you leading people spiritually, you're supposed to be caring for them. You're not supposed to be taking advantage of those people. He said, Ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. You kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. The diseased have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick, neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away, neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have ye ruled them. And they were scattered, because there is no shepherd. And they became meat to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. And that's the state of affairs today with our people. So what needs to take place is people need to really consider what this Bible says and get up under some proper teaching before it's too late. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you will edify.